If you have been on the internet these days, you might have seen that Pokemon is having an insane resurgence. So many people are starting to get back into the hobby and especially the trading cards, and people like Logic the rapper bought a Charizard for over $200,000. Logan Paul also bought another Charizard for over $2,000. And that's crazy, right? $200,000 for a piece of cardboard just for a single card. And Pokemon is a franchise that has been going strong since it started in 1996. And even for me, when I was watching it as a little kid on Saturday morning cartoons, it's crazy to look back at it now because it makes me feel very nostalgic because I remember like Charmander, Pikachu, Squirtle, and all these characters, right? But something you may not have realized is that Pokemon is actually the largest franchise in the entire world when it comes to generating revenue. It's brought in more than $92 billion in US dollars since it started in 1996. It's bigger than Star Wars, Hello Kitty, Mickey Mouse, the Marvel Universe. It's bigger than all of them by far. And so with all the hype going around Pokemon these days, I thought it'd be great to create a video about the top business development deals Pokemon did to take the #1 spot of the highest grossing franchise of all time. And make sure you watch this video until the end because, by learning what Pokemon did to get that #1 spot, you can kind of take some inspiration and some business lessons of how they were able to succeed and apply it to your business as well. What's going on, everybody? My name is Patrick Dang, and before we get started, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's go ahead and get started. So the first business development strategy we're gonna cover is we're gonna start from way in the beginning when Pokemon started, and that is the publishing business development deals with Nintendo. Now, the creator of Pokemon is Satoshi Tajiri from Japan, and he started this company. It's a magazine company called Game Freak, and he would create, handwritten magazines about the latest video games, news, strategy guides, and things like that. But as that started to go pretty well, he transitioned into creating video games. And one of his partners that he created video games for was Nintendo. And obviously Nintendo has a platform where people buy the console and they get to play the games. Game Freak was able to make games like Quinty, Yoshi, and Wario and Mario. And once Game Freak, which is focused on being a video game development studio, had a track record of creating hits or relative hits, they were able to pitch their own idea for Pokemon to Nintendo. And long story short, Pokemon became a huge hit with the release of the red version, green version, and blue version in North America. And now Nintendo owns about 30% of Pokemon. So to dive into the business development side of things, right? Why exactly does Game Freak, which is the creator of Pokemon and the video game studio, why is it that they need to partner up with someone like Nintendo? And why is it that they have to give 30% of the ownership of Pokemon to Nintendo? Why not just do it themselves? And now when we dive a little deeper, you gotta understand that Game Freak is a video game development studio, meaning their focus is purely on creating the best possible game for consumers, right? But Nintendo is the publisher, so they're going to handle all the business aspects of making a video game a success. So just because you make an amazing game, it doesn't mean people will play it. It doesn't mean people will even know that it exists. Somebody has to put it out there and do the business side of things. So some of those elements of why a game studio would have a publisher is, first we're gonna talk about funding, right? Like who is paying for the developers and who's paying the salaries of all the people that are working on this video game, right? Obviously, it could be someone like Nintendo or a publisher who will invest in a game studio to create a game for their platform. And also, who's handling the marketing? When you create a game, who's creating the TV commercials, the ads in the magazines, who's creating the buzz and getting the word out there. And to do that, it takes a lot of people full time to get those sales going. And so if you're a Game Freak and you're solely focused on creating a game, you don't have time to have a marketing division and things like that. So what you do is you pass off the game to Nintendo and then they take it from there and put it in their machine so that they can get the buzz going. And especially back in those days when you had to actually, physically create the game in cartridges and put it in the boxes, print the boxes and ship it out to all the retail stores, right? Because people go to the store and pick it up, not like just downloading like you can do today. Well, who's gonna do that? It takes a lot of work to actually physically manufacture these games and ship it to all the different stores across the country or around the world to generate those sales. So if you're a Game Freak and you don't have a department for every single one of these jobs, so instead you have to work with a publisher who specializes at doing those things that you may not be the best at. So you just focus on creating the content, the IP, the game, the intellectual property, and you give it to someone that can actually get the ball going, and then it's a win-win situation on both sides. So 30%, Nintendo owns about 30% of Pokemon. Do they deserve it? Kinda, because they're the ones that helped it become a success. Now we're gonna move into the second business development deal Pokemon did to really expand its reach across the globe, and that is their business development deal to create the animated series or anime with OLM Inc. Now the Pokemon games Red, and Green first came out in 1996, and later on, as they started to generate sales, they wanted to create an anime. And anime is very popular in Japan, and now actually is very popular all over the world. So if you think about it, why is it that they would create an anime, and why is it that they would partner up with an anime studio to do this, and why not do it themselves? Well, like I said before, if you're a game freak, you're kind of focused on creating the games, making it as good as possible. So to create, a whole team dedicated to creating anime when you have no experience creating anime is very difficult. And that's why you gotta partner up with somebody or pay them to create the anime on your behalf, right? And so Game Freak and the Pokemon Company, they own the IP, the intellectual property to use the characters and things like that. And they could take it to a studio and be like, hey, we got all these assets, we got a fire game that's selling like hotcakes, can you make an amazing anime? So OLM is going to take the money, and they're gonna create the anime, and they're gonna do a good job to, help boost the perception of Pokemon and get people more interested. Now, why exactly would Game Freak and the Pokemon Company create an anime, and why does this series continue to keep going? I think they have hundreds or even 1,000 episodes by now. So if you look at the revenue of Pokemon, right, since the inception of 1996, most of the sales are coming from merchandise, and then it's gonna be video games, trading cards, and then TV revenue is pretty much like super low. It's not even existent compared to everything else, right? Why would Pokemon dedicate so much energy into creating anime? So if you think about it, an anime is actually like a commercial to get people to buy the cards, the merchandise, and the video games, right? Because, when I first heard of Pokemon, I saw it on Saturday morning cartoons, right? And I thought it was really cool. And then from there, after, I fell in love with Pikachu, Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur, I wanted to buy the game, which I did. I bought a Game Boy, which Nintendo makes money from. I bought the trading cards, and I had some Pokemon toys as well. So pretty much, I bought all this stuff because I saw the anime first. And so that's why Game Freak and Pokemon would want to invest in creating an anime series, because it adds fuel to the fire and it makes something popular even more popular, more mainstream, and more easy to access, because watching TV is essentially free. And then if you want to dive deep and more into that world, you can buy the products. Next business development deal we're gonna cover is the Western expansion of Pokemon with 4Kids Entertainment. Pokemon was first released in Japan as the video game, and it was doing really great, and then they did the anime series. And obviously, if you're doing really well in Japan, you are thinking about expanding around the globe, especially in the North American market or the English-speaking market. And so if you're a Japanese company, you're not really sure how to expand all over the world, especially in a Western audience. So what do? You gotta partner with a licensing company to help get Pokemon in front of Western eyes. And that's why Pokemon partnered up with 4Kids Entertainment and gave them the licensing rights to, one, take the anime series, right, the television show, and then create a dub version, so an English version, so they helped produce that, and then put it on TV in America so that people like me can watch. Not only that, but 4Kids Entertainment had the rights to create the merchandise and toys for Pokemon, so obviously if you're 4Kids Entertainment, you're making bank because you took a risk on Pokemon, which is not known outside of Japan, and you're bringing it to the Western audience, hoping it's going to be big. And then you also have the licensing rights to, the bigger it gets, the more toys and merchandise you can sell and the more money you make. So if you think about it, it's a win-win situation, because Pokemon wins because they get expansion, and they hire someone else or partner with someone else to get the franchise in markets that they don't know how to penetrate. And then if you're 4Kids Entertainment, you win because you took a hot commodity in one country and you just put it in another, and it worked, and you're making money. And without going into the details of it, 4Kids Entertainment owned about 3% of Pokemon at one point, but then because things were going so well, the Pokemon Company decided to buy out their shares and do all the licensing and things like that, and create their own division in North America on their own. So, 4Kids Entertainment not making that money anymore, Pokemon's, capturing all the revenue, but in the beginning when Pokemon was small, it made sense for both sides. Next business development deal Pokemon did with multiple vendors is creating the merchandise, right? So obviously if you're a Pokemon company, it's not like you have all these factories all over the world to create these products and toys and merchandise, t-shirts and things like that. You're gonna have to work with different partners to create them and distribute them to where you need them to go, right? And like I said before, Pokemon generates a majority of their revenue from merchandise, right? So that's like necklaces, accessories, t-shirts, plush toys, things like that. And it's a known thing that the Pokemon company works with over 80 different manufacturers to create these toys, because obviously they can't do everything by themselves. So from this perspective, it's like multiple business development deals with all these different factories or toy and merchandise manufacturers. And if you're one of those manufacturers and you got a deal with Pokemon, you're just kind of printing money, right? Because Pokemon already has that demand, they got the great marketing, they got IP that's been going strong for decades. So all you're really doing is Pokemon's just saying like, hey, print us 10,000 of these, and you're just like, okay, sir, boom. And then you print out, you're basically printing out money. So obviously it's win-win both sides. Pokemon wins because they don't have to create everything themselves, and it's easier on distribution. If they are working with someone in a certain area and they don't have a factory there, then it's easier to ship it to where they need it to go. If you're the manufacturer, you're just printing money because you're just taking in orders. And of course, if you dive into the world of Pokemon, there's gonna be so many different business development deals, from, let's say, the trading card games, right? They work with another person to create the game and manufacture the cards, or even the mobile games like Pokemon Go, which exploded augmented reality games onto the mobile scene. So many different type of business development deals. Because there's so many different type of business development deals we can go over when it comes to Pokemon, for the sake of this video, we're gonna go ahead and cut it right here. So hopefully you guys learned a little something about how Pokemon was able to become the #1 franchise by working with other partners. Obviously, they're not doing it just by themselves. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and let me know in the comments if you enjoy these type of videos where I kind of look at other companies and see what business development deals they're doing to grow their business. And if you want to check out more business development deals, make sure to check out my other videos. So with that said, my name is Patrick Dang, and I will see you in the next one.